Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Soss number 418 US19. This is a concealed hinge in a black finish is what it is. So this is a 418 concealed hinge. UL label on it. This is permissible for use on fire doors. We'll talk about that at length shortly. This will permit doors to open to 180 degrees. Given that the template is followed and that the wall and door conditions don't exceed what is possible for this hinge, let's go over some basic dimensional properties and we'll talk about where you would use this. Overall height, about 4 5/8. Width, about 1 1/8 inches. Overall depth of the entire body of the hinge looks like it's about 1 5/8 inches. Then the plate, the faceplate itself, looks like it's about 3/8 of an inch. Weighs about 2.5 pounds, at least it does with its included fasteners. Both machine and wood screws are here. A template, a paper template is included, and we're going to go over that as well. Let's talk about where, in fact, you would want to use this type of hinge. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, where would you use this hinge? Well, most certainly somewhere where you want a concealed sort of deployment of hardware. Soss hinges are used not because they're the cheapest way to hang a door, not because they're the easiest item to mortise for, even though they are easy, but when you want concealed, you don't want to see the hardware, Soss is the way to go. Soss is not a three-way adjustable axis type of concealed hinge. Soss has said they will never manufacture that type of hinge. They do that admittedly to their own detriment, in the sense that I would imagine that the market for multi-adjustable axis concealed hinges is probably bigger than the entire Soss company itself. But the reason they say that is because there's absolutely no need to, in my opinion, compromise this design just to give you the ability to tweak it 1, 2, or 3 millimeter in a direction. The reasoning is, once you've located where you need to mortise this, there's never a need to adjust anything. And in fact, in all the decades that I've been selling Soss hinges, no one has ever said, boy, that door is no longer true plumb level and square in the opening because of that Soss hinge. It's never happened. And that's because of the design of this. There's no reason to have it multi-adjustable. Most multi-adjustable hinges are always substantially more expensive than anything that Soss creates. This is a more expensive hinge because it's fire rated. It's a different sort of construction compared to what would be the typical 218. But if you have a fire door and you need concealed hinges, this is a great option. So it's not adjustable. Soss says you don't need to adjust it. You put the hinge in the right place on the door and frame, you don't need to adjust it, and that's just where that's going to sit. We've talked about the size of it. We've put some scale on it. Concealed or concealed and fire rated. I'm doing a job right now where the client wants concealed and fire rated, but we couldn't use Soss on that project, and we had to use regular butt hinges because the maximum door size currently with Soss is 4 foot by 8 foot. This client's doors are 3090, and Soss is not specifically approved for anything taller or wider than an 8 foot by 4 foot door. Soss told me when I spoke to them a few months ago, it's the end of 2020 right now, that they were going to be testing in the new year for taller doors. It was just the impression I got was it was going to be just simply a matter of testing the door testing the hinge and being able to change their approval or listings for what their hinge can be used for. But at this time, it can't be used. So we had to use just regular butt hinges, unfortunately. Now, I had mentioned earlier that this is actually really easy to install, really easy to mortise, and it is. Basically, with any sort of piece of hardware, you have to know its height, its width, its depth, and then where to locate it. The only caveat to where to locate it is the same caveat with every other piece of hardware. When you mortise a wood door or a wood frame for butt hinges, you have a hinge back set. It's typically a 1/4 inch. You have to have that back set. Well, it turns out with Soss, there's also a back set. We just happen to call it the E dimension. And as long as you don't ruin the E dimension in your mortise, these are going to fit perfectly. And we're going to dive into the template and all of the other paperwork, so we'll see what that E dimension or the back set is. This hinge is going to be available in different finishes. Let's take a look and see what those are. Okay, you can do this in a stainless steel, first of all, 418 SS, polished or brushed finish. You can do this in an unplated hinge altogether. Why you may want it unplated could be that you're going to do some sort of a finish on it of your own, or you might just want raw metal. Satin nickel, I think we're at 4. Obviously black, satin chrome, and satin brass you can do the 418 on. So let's switch to the screen view now, and let's start taking a closer look at all of the supporting information. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now let's get back to it. Okay, this is the hinge that we are looking at. Let's hop in and take a look at some images that we have. There's the label. There's the hinge itself. Another view on it. Laminated plates. That's what gives the riveted laminated plates. That's what gives this hinge all of its strength. I should have also mentioned, if you need to carry a very heavy door, this hinge is well suited. That's on the push side of the door, should you ever be able to see that when the door is closed. An end view, the opposite side. Hardware, most hardware on a fire door is mandatorily obligated to be labeled. This does have a label on it. If your opening were to be inspected by a fire door assembly inspector, they may ask that the door be taken down so they can make sure the hinges are appropriate and labeled, and they need to be able to find that. The hinge fully open when the door would be at basically 180 degrees. The UL label. So, as a result of that being there, the inspector would not need to remove the door at all, thankfully. Capital letter F. There's a capital letter and a lowercase f. If it's capital F, it means it's positive pressure. Lowercase f is neutral pressure. You will see lowercase f's if you look on latch bolts and other things. That's neutral pressure, yeah. Side view of the item. The screws. The template that's included. Now, extended description information. The 418 hinge is used in wood or metal applications for 1 3/4 thick doors. Or I should say a minimum thickness of 1 3/4. The 418 is made of alloy steel. This full-size door style hinge will provide superior appearance and durability. These hinges are found in many applications where flush fit, compact size, smooth operation are necessary features, along with concealed, along with possibly fire rated, along with heavier doors. These hinges can go 180 degrees and are a single action hinge, means the door swings in one direction, made of a steel alloy. Full-size entry, metal and wood door applications, black E-coated, that's what the US19 means, it's black. Minimum door thickness is 1 3/4. You can use it on the 2-inch thick door, but minimum thickness is 1 3/4. Those wood screws were 10 by 2.5. The metal screws were 10/24 by 3/4. If you're drilling into a softwood such as pine, you'll want a number 43 wire size bit for the wood screw. And if it's a hardwood like, say, maple, you'll want a 31. The larger the number, the smaller the smaller diameter of the drill bit in wire sizes. Hinge weight 2.15. Maybe the hinge itself weighs 2.15, but the box it screws weighs 2.5. This is a UL listed hinge, can be used on hollow metal, sheet metal, tin clad, and steel composite swinging type fire doors and frames up to and including 3 hours. They can be used on wood doors and frames up to 20 minutes. Additionally, they can be used on wood composite, wood or plastic composite doors and frames constructed with the GP FS1 or FS2. It's a reference to the material that's used to create the fire door. A banded fire core is what that probably means. Is certainly what that means for up to 90-minute doors. You'll have to check with your wood door manufacturer on that to see if their cores are compliant, are Georgia Pacific. Use at least one fire-rated hinge for every 20 inch of door height or portion thereof, or one hinge for every 60 pounds or fraction thereof, whichever calculation requires more hinges. So if you had a 7-foot door, you're going to need 4 hinges, and if you have a 3070, that door is going to be 150 pounds, and according to the nomograph, or the sizing chart that we'll look at shortly, you'll see 4 hinges would be required. Wood and machine screws are included, and they're sold as each. When you buy one, we'll ship you one. Now, a little bit of a graphic that's here shows all these letters, and these letters are basically here in this table, so to speak, with their respective sizes. E is the hinge back set. It's a 1/4 inch on this hinge. All the other sizes you can literally just take off of the template, which we're going to go over. Now, there are 6 links here. Let's go over all of them. Let's start with the hinge sizing chart. Okay, let's dive into the sizing chart, they call it. It's called a nomograph. I don't know the definition of nomograph other than it must mean sizing chart. So what happens here is you've got the hinge number up here, 218, showing the minimum door thickness here, so on and so forth. 220s would be for a 2-inch thick door. And the way that you use this is you put your finger or your pencil on the door width. Let's say it's 3 foot, so it's about here. And let's say that that door weighs 150 pounds. Straight line through the 150, continue on up, and then over. And you'll find that that typical 3070, that's 150 pounds, is going to need 4 218s. You can't use the 220 because it's for a 2-inch minimum door thickness. You can use these other hinges provided that there's overlap. So you might be able to get away with 4 of the 216s. But there's not much price difference there at all. That's how you use that nomograph. They actually have 3 of these. One is for their standard hinge. The second is for their Hercules hinge. And then after that it is for their wide throw hinge. And I'll show you those other 2 nomographs before the end. So a chart that I have used, frankly, countless times to make sure I'm specifying the proper hinge. All right, now that is link 1 of 6. Let's take a look at the next one. 90-degree open. Okay, this is just a drawing. It shows you what that hinge looks like when it's at 90 degree in the open position. X dimension. Dimension X is the dimension from this point to either face of the Soss hinge listed. So from here over, it'd be the X dimension. For a 218, it'd be 5/16. Why that's important, it's nice to know what that is, but I can't think of a reason off the top of my head that I need to know that. If one comes to mind, I'll be sure to mention it. Cased jam detail, let's take a look at that. This is just simply a handy document to be able to see because it starts to draw our attention to this E value. And all of this is literally just right here. And that's the E right there. So handy to be able to see that. Clearance detail, if you were to call the factory and ask them information about clearance, they're going to ask you for your email and send this to you. And hopefully this gives you the information that you need. You can have applied material on one side of the opening or on the frame and on the door, both or neither, I suppose. But this is handy to be able to show you what you're doing. You'll note here the E dimension shows where the hinge is mortised all the way to the face of the door and the jamb, assuming there's something applied to it. But you can see that when you technically violate the E dimension, like you are here, you're only going to get to 90 degrees. And an auxiliary stop is absolutely suggested for this. Same situation, just reversed. And really all of this is important because of what they're showing you here, how tight of a margin that actually is. 1/64 of an inch based on the maximum E dimension. Quite tight. All right, there is template and then hinge location. Let's go over hinge location first. This shows you where Soss wants you to vertically locate all of the hinges, depending on how many hinges are on a door. It's easy. Let's just take our 4-hinge scenario as we're kind of discussing here. If the door center is, say, 42 inch, let's say you've got a 7-foot door, they want hinge 3 to be right in the middle between the first hinge, or the top hinge, and that door center. So hinge 3 is, if this is 8 to 10 inch, this is 42. This will be right in the middle between 8 and 10 inch and 42. Hinge 4 will be, in this scenario, if it's 42 inch, a quarter of that. So 10 and a half inch, I suppose. Right there. 8 to 10 inch up from the bottom. The reason they're stacking more hinges at the top is because the majority of the weight of the door is borne by the top hinge. That's why towards the top. And as you go wider, that even gets more difficult. So you want to stack those hinges up close, meaning bias them towards the top of the door. Now the template. Let's take a closer look at that. So it's at this point where people either resign themselves to not being able to mortise Soss or dive in. And let's just dive in. So all you need to know is what's the width, what's the height, and where to put it. So the width and the height are easy. It's 4 39/64, and then it's 1 1/8. Sure, you're going to need to mortise. You'll need to make 2 mortises. This body prep, which is 1 41/64 by 2 7/16, and then the plate prep, which is going to be 4 39/64 by 1 1/8, and then it's going to be 13 32 deep. That's the hinge size. So it's really just that easy. The only thing that you now have to do is to place it, and that's going to be 2 dimensions, just like you would have for a regular butt hinge. The height, that's obvious. Then the hinge back set, 1/4 inch. It's the E dimension. From the edge of the hinge to the outside of the jamb, or the edge of the hinge to the pull side of the door. Don't exceed that, and you're in good shape. That's all there is to it. Lots of lines, lots of dimensions, lots of notes and whatnot, but at the end of the day, these are really easy to mortise for. Let's continue on with that type of thought. They're easy to mortise for. Let's go to the manufacturer's page in our site where we can pull up not only all of the Soss products we sell by means of that horizontal navigation, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the product catalog as seen here. Now that product catalog is really handy because It's obviously going to show you all of the Soss products that we sell. But you're going to be able to take a look at the router guide templates and template system that Soss makes available for their product line. So first of all, they have templates. The template, well, it looks like that. This is a Porter cable router with a plunge base on it, and that piece of poplar gets nailed to the door and the jamb either individually or in this entire set where you can buy these aluminum rails. It's called an RGS is what it is. You can buy it. You can buy the RGS, and that will handle up to 4 templates. You'll then buy as many wooden templates as you need, and you buy the template based on the hinge that you're mortising. So if you're going to do a 418, you need to buy the 418 IT. 2 more pieces that you must have. In this router, there's a base. It's right here. That's silver. You're looking at the lock nut. But down in the below the base is sticking out the router guide. 3/4 inch OD. That's mandatory. You need to have an RGB 100, a router guide that's going to be 3/4 inch OD. The final thing you need is the right diameter bit. 418 IT requires a 51310 half-inch diameter router bit. These items are in our site. Here's your router bit. Your RGB 100 was your guide. Here's your guide. Your 418 IT. Here's your template. Your RGS, that may not be on the website just yet, but it will be by the time you're seeing this video. It's listed here as a router guide system. You will need, if you're going to set up an entire kit, you're going to want to buy 4 line items: the RGS, the 418, the template, the RGB 100, and then your 51310. And you're probably going to want multiple 418 ITs. Yesterday I had a client call. They're doing a job that is hardly ever done. And I'd like to tell you about that job, and it will help give some outline as to how and why you would want to use this template system. So let's switch back to the camera view and wrap up this video. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. So just yesterday, a client called and asked, needed to place an order for some Soss machining hardware. It was explaining that the hinge that they were using, it was the 218, wasn't sure of the finish yet. The client hadn't chosen a finish, but wanted to buy everything needed and didn't know really what they needed, but they knew enough to realize that they could do the work, but was calling me to say, tell me those items that I need. So the conversation started out requiring, I should say, an outline of what was being done. The client was going to need 4 templates, so these were taller than average doors, is what they actually ended up being. We're going to need the RGS, we're going to need 4 templates, then we need the bit and the guide. Okay. Client then said to give him 2 extra templates, so we made it 6 of the 218 ITs. 4 would be connected in the RGS, that would then get nailed down to the door and then transposed over to the frame and then nailed down. Because he was thinking that his carpenter would lift that router up and nick the template, would cut the template or damage it. And you never want to move the router while it's still spinning because you're going to damage the bit or the template itself. So I ordered a couple of additional templates and then asked, you know what, should I have 2 of these kits, he says. And I'm thinking in my head, probably not, because, I mean, how many doors do you have? 1, 3, well, not 1, but 3, 6, maybe 10. Turns out the client has 100 doors. And what the owner of this 11,000 square foot home did was they decided they wanted to go all Soss concealed hinges. So this client, this owner, hired the contractor to do a Dutchman on all the doors and all the frames, refinish everything. You can't see where the original hinge locations were mortised. And once he said there were 100 doors, my response was, my God, man, that's a lot of doors. I said, you want your door supplier to do this? And that's when he reminded me, no, these are all existing. I said, well, do you have a second person that you can spool up and have them do the work? It turns out the journeyman carpenter has an apprentice who can do the work. And my answer was, the template kit and all of the parts you need are so inexpensive given the scope of the job. I would think you want 2 of these. He also asked me for a router recommendation. I pulled up the Porter cable. I happen to be partial to Porter cable. The Porter cable website, and gave him a part number for a 2 1/4 or 2 3/4 horse router that had a modular system where the base could be turned into a plunge, because you'll need a plunge router. You can't use just a router. You must have a plunge router because you've got to move that bit down. And if you recall, the depth of that was 1 41/64, so 1 11/16, something like that. Probably 1 5/8. So you're going to need a plunge router. So, I gave him my endorsement of Porter cable. It's all good. Also, that guide is meant for a Porter cable base as well. And the client bought 2 complete setups. He ordered 2 RGSs. He ordered 12 of the templates, 2 18ITs. He ordered 2 of the bits and 2 of the guides. And now 2 people will be able to spool up and get going. I explained that I would take that RGS and I would probably permanently attach all of those templates in such a way that they couldn't move, because when you pull a template off the door, it's going to move ever so slightly, and you don't want to have any inconsistencies, because I imagine one guy's going to do doors and the other guy's going to do frames, or however they'll go about doing it. Who really knows? But the fact of the matter is, given the cost, it was maybe $900 when he was all done. Those tools are probably going to be put in a box and forgotten about, because most contractors don't end up doing Soss after Soss after Soss after Soss, even though many years ago I knew an old timer back in the early 90s. He did Soss all the time, and he did Soss all the time because he was a journeyman carpenter. He was a guy could build stairs out of oak, so he was a master carpenter, and nothing about Soss intimidated him. But hopefully through this video you've realized, oh, there's nothing intimidating about this. It's what's the height, what's the width, what's the depth, you got a plate and a body, then where to put it. Yeah, vertically, got to get that right. Back set, you got to get that right. It just turns out if you get the back set wrong on a butt hinge, door's still going to swing. You get it wrong on a Soss hinge, the door may not swing. So really handy and really helpful to look at all that paperwork to eliminate the possibility that you are intimidated. But we've sold those kits multiple times to people doing I've sold it to people doing just 1 door and 1 frame. And, the argument for that is, if you're going to take that template and you're going to have to measure it 3 or 4 times on the door and then measure it 3 or 4 times on the frame, you do have an opportunity for it to be off. But the pro tip, back to the fellow with the 11,000 square foot home, 100 plus doors, I immediately said to the client, you've got to see if there's an inset on that material. You've got to see if the doors and frames are flush. If the door is inset, which doors many times are, aluminum storefront, from the face of the jamb to the face of the door, they can be flush. That door can also be inset. Hollow metal, it's always inset. Wood can be either way. When you use the Soss template system, you are getting a flush condition. If his existing material was inset, it's going to be a problem. Why? 2 reasons. The positioning of the stop on the jamb is not in the right position when you take that door and you suck it back flush. You have a big problem there. The other problem is the latch bolts coming out, let's say the center of the thickness of the door, your strike plate center line is skewed or biased because of where the inset is. So if you pull that door out, you suck it out flush, your door is going to need to hyper swing in order to certainly touch the face of the stop, but to latch. So all that's in the wrong position as well. The client told me when he built his initial mock-up as proof of concept, he discovered, oh my gosh, these are inset, and I have to do something about that. So the client knows that he's got to shim his kit off the face of the jamb just that small amount of his existing inset, so that the stop is good, so that he's basically creating Soss hung doors that are inset, whereas normally with the template kit they wouldn't be. That's the bottom line. Folks over at Soss are extremely helpful. They're extremely attentive. If the material's in stock, they get it shipped out really quick. Nice, friendly folks over there. The one complaint, if it's not even a complaint, they don't have a DWG file for their hinge. I would really love to be able to see how that hinge moves a door through its opening and closing cycle. Everyone I've ever spoken to who gets into high-end woodwork, they've never heard of it, and we all lament the same. We wish that we had it. If one becomes available somehow. I don't have a command over AutoCAD to be able to draw that with. You've got multiple points of rotation is the issue. Well, it's the point of rotation is not a circle, it's an ellipse, and I don't know how to tell AutoCAD to take a point of rotation but move it over an ellipse is the problem, because that vertical axis of pivoting is floating. Actually, let me demonstrate that for you. Imagine in your mind's eye a butt hinge. When you take that hinge and you open and close it, the vertical axis of pivoting doesn't move. It's not the case with Soss. That riveted pin is going to act as our vertical axis of pivoting. As I move that, you can see it's not observing, it's not observing a true circle. It's more of an ellipse, where that rivet right here is moving through. That is not a circle. That's the problem with the AutoCAD idea. Okay. Anyway, if you have any questions on the Soss 418 and the US19 finish or any other Soss product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.